Okay, this is my mom. She's going to be the one doing the exercises and I'm going to be coaching her through it. So the first exercise is going to be the plank. The plank falls under the core category. The muscles used for this exercise are your rectus abdominis, your external obliques, and your serratus anterior. The joint action is isometric and is a trunk stabilization exercise. A regression of this exercise would be performing the plank with your knees on the ground for more support, and a progression of this exercise would be lifting one leg or one arm for more engagement of the core. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go into a high plank position with your hands directly under your shoulders. Okay, good. Okay, and then lower your knees down to the ground. Good. Okay, so I'm going to adjust you a little bit. So you're going to tilt like this while keeping this straight, and then and then lift your stomach a little bit, and then like tilt like your hips inwards like that. There we go. Okay. All right. Let me just see. Okay. And now you can actually hold it like that. Now I'm going to ask you to go down onto your forearms. Okay. Good. Hands, yep, palms facing the sky. I'm going to adjust them so they're directly under. Okay. Tilting all of it. There you go. And then hold that for 3 more seconds. I'm going to ask you to lower this just a little bit. There you go. Okay, you could stand back up. Okay, the next exercise is going to be the supine core pose. The muscles, this too falls under the core category. The muscles this works is your rectus abdominis and your transverse abdominis. The joint action is hip and shoulder flexion and extension. A regression of this exercise would be having your knees 90% off of the ground and then just working on your upper body movement. And a progression of this exercise would be me holding a resistance band and the person working against the resistance band. So what I'm going to ask you to do is lay on the ground with your back on the ground, please. Okay, good. I'm just going to back this up a little bit so they can see a little more. Okay. All right. I'm going to have you lift so your knees are about the line where your hips are at. Good. 90 degrees. You're going to dorsiflex. Good. Now I'm going to ask you to bring your hands so they are up of your head. Good. So now while keeping the core engaged and your back flat, good, I'm going to ask you to extend your right leg forward, and as you extend that one, I'm going to ask you to bring your left hand back at the same time. Okay, good. Now you return back. Make sure these stay dorsiflex. Okay, now do the same thing but the other opposite arm, opposite leg. Good, and return back. And then go ahead with the opposite one. Oh, yeah. Stay here, and this stays right here. There you go. 90 degrees. A little bit like that. Okay, go ahead. Good, and then one more with these. Good. Okay, you can stand up. Okay. The next exercise is going to be the bicep curl. This falls under the single joint upper body category. The muscles that this work is your bicep brachii and your brachialis. The joint action is elbow flexion. A variation of this exercise would be using a barbell or a resistance band under your feet and lifting up, and a progression would be one, performing the bicep curl, rotating your pinkies upwards towards the sky. Okay, so I'm going to give you these weights. All right, so I'm going to, so I have them there. Have a soft stance with your knees, good. All right, so you're going to lift the weight up to, before you go ahead and just really quickly explain, you're going to lift the weight up towards your shoulders by bending your elbows. You want to keep your elbows in and make sure that they don't drift forward or out to the side. And when you're going to stop the flexion of your elbows is when you no longer feel tension in your biceps. And then also when performing this, you don't want to hyperextend your back while you're lifting. You want to keep a neutral spine in the core engaged. And then one more thing. When lifting, you're going to rotate your pinkies upwards. And then when you return down, return them back to where the palms are facing each other at your side. Okay, so go ahead, whenever you're ready. I'll see to. Okay. Is that when is up here is when you stop feeling the tension all the way up here?
No, not all the way. I'll be right
Yeah.
here.
Okay, good. And return that down. Okay, go ahead. And then we also want to make sure that we keep a neutral wrist, like so. Okay. Go ahead, turn back down and rotate back down like that. There you go. All right, one more. Okay, good. Okay, the next one you can keep holding on is going to be the dumbbell front raise. The muscles that this work. Oh, this also falls under the single joint upper body category. The muscles that this exercise works is your anterior deltoids, which is the muscle right in front of your shoulder, and the joint action is shoulder flexion. A variation of this exercise would be using a resistance band, just like I explained with that, with the dumbbell curl. What you're going to do is grab the resistance band and you're going to lift forward. And a progression would be using a plate, a small little plate, and holding it as if it was a steering wheel and performing the exercise. So, like the bicep curl, I'm going to ask you, soft stance, a little bend at the knees, engage core. So, have your weight in front of your thighs with your palms facing towards the back, good. So, what you're going to do is have a very slight bend at your elbows. You're going to lift the weight forward in front of you. When you lift the weight, make sure you don't go any higher than the shoulder height. And as again, make sure you don't hyperextend your back, curving it like so. And make sure your core is still engaged. So whenever you're ready, we're going to do 5. Okay. Good. Good. So maybe not too high, like right about here. Good. Okay. One more, go ahead. Good, okay. So the next exercise is going to be the multi-joint, multi-joint upper body exercise, or that's the category it falls under. The exercise is going to be, I can't see my notes. Oh yeah, I could just cut it out. Alright, so the next exercise we're going to do is the dumbbell bent row. This falls under the multi-joint upper body category. The muscles used in this exercise are your latissimus dorsi, your teres major, your traps, your deltoids, and your bicep brachii and brachialis. The joint action is going to be shoulder extension and elbow flexion. Okay, so a regression of this exercise would be performing the bent row, which is one weight in one hand, one arm at a time in a staggered stance, and a variation of this exercise would be using a barbell with weights on the side, or a supported bent row where you are placing one hand on a bench to help support you, and then you're performing the row. Okay, so what I'm actually do is have a slight bend on the knees. Okay, good. We're going to, actually I'm going to turn this way so they can see. There you go. So slight bend at the knees. Good. Can you just back up a little bit more for me? Thanks. Okay. So now you're going to hinge at the hip. So good. This. So you're going to have your weights like this. Ask you to go down just a little bit more if you were able to. Okay, good. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna retract, keep everything aligned. You don't want to make sure you keep this posture. You're going to retract your scaps and squeeze them together as you're lifting the weight. Before you lift the weight, you're gonna have your elbows, lead with your elbows up with the elbow flexion, and make sure that they don't drift forward or out like so. So whenever you are ready, go ahead. Good. Okay, one more. Or not one more, but okay, good. Good. Go ahead. Okay, good. And one more, please. Okay, good. All right, you can stand up. The next exercise is going to be the push-up. This too is a multi-joint upper body exercise. My mom's going to do the regression version. So the muscles that the push-up works is your latissimus dorsi, your teres major, your brachialis, and the joint action is elbow flexion and scap depression and retraction. A progression of this exercise would be adding a weighted vest or having a weight on your back as you're performing the exercise. A variation would be performing a tricep push-up where your elbows stay inwards, and a regression would be performing just like the plank, performing the push-up with your knees on the ground for further support. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to go up into a push-up position, but with your knees on the ground. Okay, good. Okay, have your hands directly into your shoulders, so right about here, please. Okay, now lean forward a little bit. Good. All right, looks good. Everything's straight. Kind of like a tilt, it looks like. All right, so now what you're going to do is lower yourself slowly by flexing your elbows down, bring your chest to the ground, and then return yourself back up. And what you're going to do is you're going to retract your scaps and depress them when you go down, and then push back up. So, and be sure to not allow this to sag. You're going to want everything to move in one motion. So whenever you're ready, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Good. Go ahead. Two more. One more. And one more. You got this. Good job. Okay, you can stand back up. Okay, so now we are